This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. Here's your host, Corey Tusick.
This is the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Corey Tusick. On today's episode, I speak with golfer Aaron Ingalls on Twitter. You can find him at BTC Aaron. That's two A's, AARON. Aaron is an amateur golfer in the United States here, and he's actually right now in the process of qualifying for the U.S. Open. So hopefully by the time this comes out, he will have made it to the U.S. Open. So I wanted to talk to him about, golf in general, because I love golf, but we really get into Bitcoin and there's some similarities between golf and Bitcoin, of kind of how he was saying how you have your best rounds when you just keep your head down and aren't really paying attention and focusing on the next shot, kind of like stacking sats, how that's the best way to get a return is to not pick your head up and look at any ups and downs, just keep stacking sats. So yeah, we talked about that stuff, and I just got into different things and curious as to what his world is like being a Bitcoiner in the golf world, and he also had some help, some good insight for anybody that's out there looking to potentially expand their talent stack and find different avenues for income to help generate more revenue, to get freedom away from being stuck at one job that you might not be thrilled with. So we talked about that kind of stuff. I hope you guys enjoy the show. You can follow me on Twitter at Bitcoin Simply and email the show bitcoinmadesimplepodcast@gmail.com. Hope you enjoy. Thanks. That's a new thing. Zoom. Did you hear that? Zoom just said
it popped up on my side.
It was like recording in progress. So
it gave me the option to leave the meeting, so it didn't record me.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking at the price of Bitcoin right now, and do you think we're gonna dip down? Because I'm trying to set a buy order right now, and where do you think we're gonna dip to?
I have no idea. I'm too bullish to give price predictions.
I know, me too. I'm like, oh, well, there's no way. Like, I panic. I had one tick off Saturday or Sunday at 33.5, and I'd been waiting like 6 days for that. And
I sold a piece of real estate, a rental property that I had I think we closed last Friday, and it was like perfect timing. I think I got some at like 31.5. Put some buy orders in after I got the proceeds from the real estate and dumped it in there and set some buy orders. The timing was perfect. It didn't matter when I sold the property. I was buying Bitcoin regardless of the price. But I'm too bullish to I tweeted out earlier, when you understand there's only 21 million Bitcoin and there's infinite amount of dollars, when you really take that into perspective, it's hard to think about dips too much. That's why I can never trade Bitcoin.
And you can't, once you see that, you can't unsee it. It's like, I'm gonna go with your good luck charm. I'm gonna place a buy order at 31.5 and I'm just gonna do that. I shook out the couch cushions, found a little bit more dry powder.
There you go.
Once you see it, once you wrap your head around that, it's just like, that's it. Like,
you never want to be on the other side of it. Yeah, you always want to be on the Bitcoin side. You never want to be in fiat.
Yeah, exactly. So I gotta ask, how did you get into Bitcoin? Like, what was your original, what got you into it to start?
Yeah, so I guess I would go back to like Ron Paul. That was probably like the start of like kind of going down the libertarian rabbit hole. I think I was in either just out of high school or in high school when Ron Paul was campaigning, and I remember starting to follow that, picking up on some of that stuff, and that kind of got the ideology of libertarianism in my head and got me thinking, more logical about that kind of stuff. And then I remember joining some groups on Facebook that were, kind of going further down the path. They were talking about Rothbard and Mises, and It was like an ANCAP, I guess, voluntarist groups that, they got on there and they just talked about stuff and shared kind of literature that they were reading. But it seemed like, nobody was really doing anything about it. Like the best option was to like buy gold and silver and bullets. And it didn't really seem like anybody was actually making progress as far as like human freedom. And then in 2015, I was watching a documentary about the deep web that was about Ross Ulbright, the Silk Road. And there was like a little, probably 2 or 3 minute, just little blurb in there about Bitcoin that kind of touched on Bitcoin, but didn't really explain it. I'd heard about Bitcoin in like 2012, 2013 on a job site. I was working and some guy was buying drugs and I just kind of blew it off. But then in 2015, when I saw that on that documentary, I got a little bit more interesting but between the time that I'd first heard about it until that time, I think I had read like The Creature from Jekyll Island, and I had done more studying about the monetary system. I remember watching Mike Maloney's whole series on like the hidden secrets of money. And so and all that stuff made a lot of sense, but the solution was always like go back to gold. But gold didn't really seem like, it didn't make sense to me that we would ever go back to using gold, because like you can't do day-to-day transactions with gold. You can't just go to the store and shave off a little bit of gold to buy something. So it never really it seemed pretty far-fetched. But then in 2015, I saw that documentary and it just got me looking at it. But then my first inclination was to like figure out why it couldn't work. Like how can you have something digital on the internet that's scarce? And so my first like dive into the rabbit hole was to kind of disprove Bitcoin. Like I was going to figure out why I could create more of it, or I was going to go create my own Bitcoin or create some Bitcoin. And, 3 months later of like, that's all I did was read about Bitcoin, trying to figure it out. 3 months later, I was like totally sold on it and just going back to all my buddies, telling everybody about Bitcoin. I thought everybody would just kind of like catch on and it'd be like instant, but like people just ignore you. They just think you're a crazy guy. And so, when you're going down that rabbit hole, you look around at your friends and nobody's like thinking the same way. And so you pop up every once in a while, like, am I crazy? Or does this make sense, or am I crazy? So you have a lot of those moments as you're as you're going down the rabbit hole, you're like learning about Bitcoin, and it's kind of opens your eyes to other things. That's kind of how I fell into it. It was just that deep web documentary, and that kind of kicked me off. And then it was like Andreas Antonopoulos videos every day, listening to podcasts. There weren't many podcasts back then. Like Ansel Lindner had one that he just talked about Bitcoin and markets. And there were a few other crypto and Bitcoin podcasts that I would listen to pretty regularly. But that kind of sent me down the rabbit hole. And so that was like pretty good timing, kind of led right into the 2017 bull run. And that kind of like, when that happened, it was like perfect timing for me, because as I got into it, it was fairly inexpensive and I was still learning about it. And then I was like pretty validated. I was validated pretty soon after with the bull run of 2017 that maybe I was onto something.
Yeah. And what was your entry point? Your first entry point?
I would say like I started dabbling. I may have bought like a little bit of Bitcoin on Coinbase in like late 2015.
Okay.
Probably late 2015 or early 2016. The price was like $300 or $400 or something like that. But
you're one of the lucky ones to get in that early and think of,
Yeah, you say that, but like my conviction then wasn't near what it is now. So like,
yeah, that's true.
If I knew what I know now back then it'd be a totally different story. But so it was just like a little dabble. It was, might have bought like $25 worth here and played with it. And I remember like the aha moment. Then this was probably in 2016 when I bought some Bitcoin on Coinbase, and then I sent it to like a paper wallet, and then I sent it to like my phone, and then I sent it back to a paper wallet, and I was moving this Bitcoin around. And I remember having it on this piece of paper, and I thought, wow, this piece of paper has value. How weird is that? Like this, that I have these private keys and I can send this anywhere in the world. Nobody can stop it. And it's just on this piece of paper, and I can hide this piece of paper in a book or something like that. It was just that aha moment where it was, I realized that I had something that was a bearer asset that I could kind of move around and do whatever. I could just store it in my head, or I could store it anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
that was kind of like the aha moment when I was like, wow, this is pretty
This is
pretty
pretty
awesome.
crazy.
Yeah.
So did you have it like just have the like the seed phrase or
No,
the
I created, so there was a website. It was called maybe it was like bitaddress.org or something like that. You could go on this website and you could like, you would just move your mouse around and it was use the entropy. Well, you would download the website and then you could move it to like a computer that wasn't online. Like you would put it on a USB. And I remember moving it to a laptop, and I was kind of paranoid at the time. Like I had a printer that I destroyed after I printed it off. Um, I didn't really
Nice.
understand anything, which I was probably right to do so. I had
Oh
it on
yeah,
like,
no, you were ahead of your time there.
yeah, I had it on a computer that wasn't connected to the internet, and then I down put the website in, and it would just I guess it would use the algorithm, and you could move the mouse around, or you could do different things, and it would create entropy, and it would generate public private key pairs, and then you could print it off on the printer, and then I destroyed the printer after I printed a couple off, and then so it was just creating. It was actually like the public private key pair, and you could fold it up where you couldn't see the private key and put some tape on it. Yeah, that was like the first thing I found to like how to store Bitcoin. Was I remember just looking at a YouTube video. It was like how to create a Bitcoin wallet, and it was some guy describing how to make a paper wallet, and that was like my first wallet that I had.
That's wild. It's funny because I was texting with Guy Swan about just like different ways to store the private keys and all that kind of stuff. And he mentioned like, oh, you could actually get like those, the steel and like basically how they like engrave the Stanley Cup, where they
Yeah.
like pound like with letters, they like pound the letters into the steel, and then he's like, but then you run the risk of if somebody finds it and they have your seed phrase, he's like, so you could like mix it up and have different words in different places or like scattered about,
Yeah.
and he stopped me from, I mean, I wasn't actually going to do it, but I said, I was like, well, what if I got like a tattoo of the seed phrase, and he was like, well, it wouldn't take too long for people to crack that if they got that. And I was like, yeah, good point. And then we were just kind of joking about like if you keep like forgetting your seed phrase or something, so you keep having to like change it,
Yeah.
and your whole body ends up being like tattooed, like just have like words all over you, like stuff scratched out, like
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's like one thing about Bitcoin security is it's really kind of like very personal, but you kind of you have to like kind of think through like here's my seed phrase. Like think about every kind of risk to that seed phrase, and so there's not like a one size fits all like security approach, but you have to think about like what could happen, and then you try to mitigate against like anything that could happen to your, like how you could lose your Bitcoin. So first thing you want to do is like mitigate against like your own, like if you screw something up yourself, so you want to be careful there. But then you would need to mitigate against like flood or fires or someone breaking into your house and getting a hold of your seed phrase. And so then you start thinking about like different locations to store it. So it's really just like its own rabbit hole where you're just trying to think through everything that could happen and then mitigate against it and then think through like the next stage. And so there's a lot of people that do that on Twitter, and you kind of thinking about like the risk or the threat models to your seed phrase. But yeah, I've used the steel, like stamping stuff in steel before, done some of that, and used multi-sig. And so, I mean, it's all personal how you should,
how you want to do it.
You really shouldn't really even talk about your security. That'd be the first step, is not to talk about it.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, I'm with you there. That's why I was like, okay, all right, not tattooing. So I'm gonna figure out something else. And I mean, I thought I had that same thought too, because whenever I was like texting Guy, I was like, he's probably like, everybody does their own thing, like it's like if somebody asked me how to store their keys, I would not tell them how I did it. I'd be like,
Right.
I'd be like, oh, there's some, I mean, because there, like you said, there's a bunch of options.
Yeah. Yeah, there's not a one size fits all. This just basically depends on your situation. Like if you have your own citadel, then maybe it's safe to keep your keys at your place, if you feel like it's secure. But then if if you're kind of mobile and you move around and you live in an RV, maybe it's not the best place to keep your keys. So you have to really think about your own situation and how think through how like anything that could happen and just try to mitigate against those chances.
maybe as I near the end of my life, like when I'm much older, I'll spend my retirement creating like a national treasure type like search for everything.
Yeah.
Um just for my kids and like grandkids to look for, like,
Yeah.
just to be like, hey, like, this is dad's final gift for you. You have a fun adventure. And then like halfway through it, they'll be like cursing me because they'll be like, why did he make it so hard? You could just gave it to us.
Yeah. I remember the
Um,
first time that I had bought some Bitcoin, and it was like probably during 2017. And I remember the first time I got on like an airplane afterwards, and I was like, man, if this airplane crashes and my wife can't figure this out. So I had like this full list of instructions, and it was hidden. So she couldn't find it unless she really started going through the stuff like on how to get access to the Bitcoin. But I didn't want her to have it just in case she wanted to do something. I wanted her and make sure that something happened to me before she got her hands on it.
mhm.
It was pretty nerve wracking though. Like the first time, like you're doing something where like, if something happened to me, even though plane crashes are pretty rare, but
Yeah.
some of my thoughts were like, what if something happened to me on this trip and I'm not there to like help her find this? So I've been like writing down like a full list of instructions on how she could access it. And it was like, reach out to somebody who can help you with this.
Yeah. Find an expert
Yeah.
and someone that you can trust.
Yeah.
Um, so all right, so I gotta ask then, how is Bitcoin going through the golf world? Because well, give a little background to the audience on like your golf experience and
Yeah.
how where you are as a golfer and all that kind of stuff.
Okay. So yeah, I played golf, kind of as a hobby when I was younger, like probably 13, 14 years old. My dad used to take me out to the golf course and we'd play, but I didn't really play competitive golf. And I had a lot of other interests. He wanted me to play, but I didn't. I was playing football and doing all kinds of other stuff. And so I came to college on a football scholarship. I was playing tight end at a small school in Tennessee, and the golf team was terrible. And I was like, well, I can play. I can like hit the ball. I'm all right. And so I walked
Mm,
on the golf team. They wanted warm bodies on the golf team so they can make a team. And I went out for the first year. I was playing football and golf, and I was terrible at golf. I was shooting 80s and 90s in the tournaments, not very good. But this was while I was going to two a days and practicing. And then Hugh Freeze, I don't know if you know that name. He was a head coach at Ole Miss eventually. He started his coaching career at the school I was at. He came in and he started recruiting like some really good athletes to play football. And I
mhm.
remember one day I looked around and I was like, I'm never going to be able to play on this team. Like these guys are going to kill me. And so I just decided at that point I was going to like focus on golf and like try to be, I felt like I had a better future if I just played golf versus playing football. I know I wasn't going to be any good at football. Um, but so I just like focused on golf. I woke up every morning at like 6:30 before class started in college, and I would go out to the practice range and I would practice and just worked on my game for 4 years. And eventually I won. I think I won three college tournaments. But by the
Oh,
time I
nice.
graduated, so I went from shooting like in the 80s and 90s to shooting under par pretty consistently.
Wow.
I was going out of these tournaments and shoot, maybe even par and then a couple under on the next couple rounds and winning. Um, and so that gave me some confidence. And when I got out of school, I didn't really have any money, but I wanted to play golf. And so I turned pro immediately and went down to
Sorry,
buy.
it froze right whenever you said you turned pro.
Oh yeah. Sorry. Okay. So yeah, when I turned pro, I went down to Georgia and was playing on this mini tour in Georgia.
Hmm.
And I was broke. I didn't have any money. I was just trying to get by, and so it was expensive to play in these tournaments. So I was having to like find ways to get money. It was $1,000 a week to play, plus your expenses, travel expenses, and if you won, you didn't, you won 10 grand. It was like not enough to really keep you going, and I
You
got
got
burnt
paid
out.
$1,000?
Yeah, you had to pay $1,000 to play, and if you won, you got
Oh, you
10,000. If you finished in the top five, you might get your money back. And so it was just basically legalized gamble or golf gambling. There was no sponsorship money, and I wasn't ready. I didn't have the money to go to Q school or anything at the time, so I went back to work and basically got burned out on golf and hung my golf clubs up and didn't play for 4 or 5 years. Just was completely burnt out after that grind of trying to make enough money to keep going. Um, and those guys down there were like, I wasn't quite ready for like the talent level they had. I mean, I was going out there and shooting a couple under par and finishing like middle of the pack at best. They were shooting ridiculously low scores on these golf courses. And so I went back to work and got into construction. And then a few, like 4 or 5 years later, I got a little bit more financial stability and settled down. And I was able to start playing a little bit again, and really like the freedom of not having to play for money and not the grind of that tournament golf kind of freed me up. And in 2018, like I had one of my best years ever. I won like a tournament in Kentucky, a pretty good sized tournament in Kentucky. Then I won the Tennessee State Am, and then just kind of got on a roll. And I think I won like 4 or 5 pretty good sized tournaments in a row in 2018 after getting my amateur status back. And then, and so that's kind of where I am now. I've still playing in kind of like these high level amateur tournaments, like world, like nationally ranked amateur golf stuff. Like it's called the Cocktail Tour for mid amateur golfers. And right now I'm kind of, if you ever watch the movie Tin Cup, that's what I'm going through right now, where he has to go through qualifying for US Open. I've made it through the first stage, where the first stage there was 80 players and you're playing for 5 spots. And so I made it through that. And then my next stage is I'm hoping it's going to be, we'll find out today. It should be in Jupiter, Florida, just north of the conference in Miami. And it's like 2 days after the conference. So I'm going to fly down to the conference, practice up a little bit while we're down there, and then go try to get through final qualifying for the US Open and in Jupiter. And if I get through that, we'll be playing at Torrey Pines.
So that's awesome. Have you played in the US Open before?
No. I've tried this qualifying 3 times, but the first 2 times I didn't make it through the first stage, and so this is my first time through the first stage of qualifying.
Nice. So so then how many are going down to Jupiter, Florida?
We won't know until I think today at like 5:00. They're going to release the fields. So there's like 12. I think there's 12 different qualifying sites, and maybe 500 guys playing in those 12 sites. So it'll probably be 70 or 80 people in each site playing for 5 spots or 6 spots, something like that.
Okay. So you'll be about 50, 60 people, something like that.
Yeah, probably. And then you got they call this the longest day in golf. What's coming up? It's on June 7th, but you got to walk. It's 36 holes in one day. You tee off at 7 a.m. You play your first round, and then you get a small lunch break, and then you tee off in the afternoon and you play, and it's a grind. Like, yeah, there'll probably be 15 or 20 people who after the first round, they've played bad and they would draw. They don't want to go play the second round just because everybody's exhausted. But the longest day in golf, at the end of that day on June 7th, like they'll have the whole US Open field set.
Okay. Well, it's funny, the US Open. So I actually, I live right next to the Oakmont Country Club, like pretty close.
Okay.
We're in Pittsburgh, where they have the US Open there like once every 10 years.
Yeah.
And it's they say it's the hardest putting green. Like I don't know if you've ever like been there or seen, remember watching the US Opens there, but they say it's like putting on a sheet of glass.
Yeah. I've seen that. Yeah, I remember Oakmont. So who won last at Oakmont? Was
it Dustin? I think it was Dustin.
Yeah, it may have been. Yeah.
And then in 2007, it was Tiger lost to was it Angel Cabrera?
Angel Cabrera,
yeah,
that's right.
It's so funny just because it's like, once every 10 years, like the entire golf world, like just comes down on this little small town outside of Pittsburgh, and it's fun. But like even yesterday, like we actually we're driving past it, and my son, who has like a little set of golf clubs, he's 5, but he's got his set, and he loves the driving range and all that kind of stuff, and we're driving past it, and I pointed out the golf course. I said, that's the one, because we see lots of golf courses. I'm like, that's the one, that's the one where all the guys play on TV, and he asked, when's it going to be next? And I was like, I forget, but I think it's in like 7 years. It'll be back. And I said, don't worry, we're going. Like
Yeah.
I've already processed that. Like we're going, like we're booking the tickets. I've budgeted. You're gonna be there when he's gonna be like 12 or 13 or something like that,
Oh, that's perfect.
which
Yeah.
would be like prime age for
Yeah.
like a young golfer to go, hopefully see like, Jordan Spieth and whoever's new, and like
Yeah.
maybe some legends hanging on, like maybe Tiger will have, his like senior tour, like where he'll be out there. And
Yeah. Well, heck, you can't count him out now with Phil. Phil just won. He's at age 50. It was pretty unbelievable.
I know. My cousin's a huge Phil fan because he's a lefty as well.
Yeah.
Um, so I used to like give him a hard time before Phil won the Masters in 2004. I used to like just rag him and say like, "Oh, Phil's a loser. He'll never win." Um, and then even whenever he did win that Masters, that I said he had like the sissiest celebration I've ever seen out of a golfer. Like his jump, he like jumped, but his like legs came out like sideways. And he kind of landed like on his. It was just like I remember being like, "Well, that was the he won and then did that jump and kind of ruined it." Like it
Yeah.
would have been
Yeah.
better if he would have just not made the cut and then doing that jump. So, but yeah, no, Phil's incredible.
Yeah.
Um, and I love that a couple years ago was at the U.S. Open whenever he did when he was having such a bad round and like his ball started coming back down the hill towards him and he just hit it like any other person would,
Yeah. He was
Uh,
just showing his ass there. It was that like if you really thought about the rules, he could have let that putt keep going and then just taken an unplayable lie, and you can always go back to where you played your last stroke from. He could have just come back and placed his ball back there and then
yeah,
re-putt it. It would have cost him less strokes than him slapping the putt while it was moving.
but yeah, he wanted to he kind of be every man's man,
Yeah, yeah,
It's like
yeah.
we've all
We
been
all
there.
we've all been there.
Yeah. All right, so I gotta ask you then, because this is my quest to stay in competitive stuff. Like I'm 35. How old are you?
35.
Okay, all right. So we're the same age.
Yeah.
Um, uh, and I tell my wife all the time, like there's different things. I'm like, yeah, I can go pro and like anything, like it's gonna happen. Like
Yeah.
I haven't accepted that my hockey career is over. Like I played at the University of Pittsburgh. Um, we were like, we're not like we were in varsity, we were a club. But if anybody watches the club, like there's really good, like D1 club. Um,
Yeah.
uh, so but we weren't like the next tier. And like when it came to like playing after college, it was like I could go play somewhere quote unquote professionally and like literally make like 17 $18,000 a year and like
Yeah.
have to be like painting houses on the side. And
Yeah.
it was like I had my chance to get into my movie career, so I just went for it.
Yeah.
But
That sounds a lot like mini tour golf. You go out there and you starve to death trying to play golf and hoping you make it up. So yeah,
yeah,
it's the same thing.
and like and my big thing was at the level I was playing at, you were like or would have played at, you would supplement the farm teams when the farm teams had guys get called up. And it's not
Yeah.
like baseball where there's like triple A, double A, single A. And like if you're in single A in baseball, you have a chance. Like, they're just working your way up.
Yeah.
Like in hockey, if you're not in the AHL, like the direct minor leagues, like you're not going up. Um
Yeah.
and so yeah, so anyways, ever since then though, like I keep saying, because Mario Lemieux was my favorite player and he retired and then came back at the age of 35. So I keep telling my wife until I get past that, like then I'll like when I hit 36, then I'll be like, okay. Because right now in my mind, I'm like, Lemieux came back. She's like,
Yeah.
yeah, but he was like the best player in the world. Like,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. We get to this age. I was thinking about it the other day. Like I'm older than almost every NFL player. We'd be
yeah,
we'd be like the oldest NFL players.
I know.
It is weird to think
It's,
about. Yeah.
it was funny because I interviewed Sean Culkin and was like talking to him about like players I knew that played in the NFL that like friends with and stuff. And I was like, yeah, I mean they're all not in the league anymore.
Yeah. Yeah.
like LaShawn McCoy. I mean, I'm not friends with LaShawn McCoy, but um he was at Pitt with me and he just retired recently.
Yeah.
And I think that was pretty much like the last one of like anybody that I could be remotely connected to that's in the
Yeah.
NFL still. Um, yeah, so it's kind of funny. But anyway, so I got to ask, what are the odds that I could become a professional golfer? Um, because, or at least a high ranking amateur golfer. So, I'll give you my credentials. So I played hockey, so that's what got me into golf because it's
Yep.
pretty natural transition. Um, and for anyone listening, I'm not trying to brag. I'm just, I'm not a great golfer, but I can hit the ball. Like my drive is on average like 340 yards,
Wow.
um, and mostly straight. But probably not like that's the thing though, is like when you're playing public courses, it's probably not straight enough to be like playable on, like a US Open
Yeah.
course or something like that. There's all those factors that you have to play. But last summer I went with my father-in-law, and the one hole I hit I literally hit the farthest drive I'll hit in my life, probably. And I remember like I use like trackers and stuff to like keep the distance. But when I hit it, I said to him, I said, that's the farthest golf ball I've ever hit in my life. And we measured it out. And it was 374 yards.
Wow.
And then the next shot, this is where I struggle, is like playing the irons and the fairway, stuff like that. And I dropped it and it bounced straight up and landed right next to the pin. And then I just, sank it for a birdie and it was only a par four, but it was a really long par four.
Yeah.
And it was right next to the clubhouse. And I was like, all these people probably think I'm like some pro because they just saw this ball like drop from the tee shot, and they're like, oh my God. So I've been wondering since then, because then after that we go home and we're like watching on TV, and I'm like most of my drives are longer than these pros. And it start playing mind tricks with me where you're just sitting there, you're like, wait a minute, like, come on, if I can hit it farther than these guys, like, what do I have to do to be in a competitive like arena there? So go ahead and shoot my dreams down and tell me that it's not possible.
Well, in golf, it's not about how far you drive it. It's about how many strokes you take to get it in the hole. So your short game, like driving, is very important. A lot of people downplay driving. They say the putter is the most important, but whatever you hit off the tee is probably the most important club you're going to hit that on that hole, because you have to get it in play. And that's why a lot of professionals could hit it further than they do, but they know how important it is to hit it in the fairway or to hit it in play. And so a lot of people, I've played a lot of golf in college and stuff with guys who hit it a long way. And as they went on to play more competitive golf later in life, they start dialing it back. And so you're trying to dial it back a little bit and then make sure that you get it in play. So it's better to be 300 yards in the middle of the fairway every time than 340 yards, but 2 out of 3 of them are in the rough or out of play, or, you just can't lose those shots. So a lot of people will start dialing it back, but that's one thing that it's hard to do on golf, is it's hard to gain the power. If you have the power, it's easy to dial back and put it in play and hit the fairway. It's hard to go the other way. If you're somebody who can only hit it 260, it's hard to pick up those extra 20, 30 yards to be in the field with other players who are, because most people, I'd say most pros hit it between 280 and 300. The anomalies out there like Dustin Johnson and Bryson and Rory, those guys, they hit it further than everybody. But then, the majority of the field is hitting it between 280 and 300. So, I mean, driving is important, but it's really the one thing that those guys do that's people don't understand is how good their short game is. If they're in around the green and they're like have a decent look at it, if they get short sided, sometimes they can't get it up and down, or if they get a bad break. But if they're around the green, they're getting it up and down a lot. They're chipping in a lot, and they're holing a lot of putts. They're not giving away a lot of shots around the green. That's usually the biggest difference. Some of the best golfers I've ever played with, when they roll a putt, it looks like it's going in every time. Like every time they hit a putt, doesn't matter if it's 30 feet, 40 feet, it looks like it's going in the hole. Like it's when you're playing against them and you got some money on the line, every time they hit a putt, you kind of pucker up a little bit watching that ball roll. You're like, oh no, it's going in. And it'll skirt by the edge. That's some of the, like, everybody who's ever gone on to do pretty good things in golf, like, that's what Tiger, he came out as like this great ball striker, and he hit it great. But if you look at like when he putted in clutch situations, he made a ton of putts.
Yeah.
And so you have to be able to get the ball in the hole. And that usually, it's like goes back to like your wedge game. Like if your short irons are good, you can hit it closer to the hole. That's going to help you make more putts. If your mid irons, your score, anything under like your 8-iron and down, like 8-iron, 9-iron, a wedge, and then all your sand wedges and stuff, you need to be hitting those pretty close to the hole pretty consistently, because it's going to give you the most looks at birdie. But that's what those guys do so good, is they're so good at, like, if they're inside 100 yards, you could probably like just say they're going to get this ball up and down, 60, 80% of the time. Whereas your average golfer is just trying to get it on the green and 2-putt and hope they make a par. But those guys are getting it up and down. They're making birdie, a lot of the time when they get inside 100 yards. And so that's like your scoring. Like if you drive it good, it may limit the high score you can shoot. So if you drive it in the fairway every time, you're not going to shoot a lot of high scores, because you're going to be able to get it up around the green. But your wedges and your putter, they determine how low you can go. So if you can get it in play and then you can get it up and down, that's when you have those rounds that are in the mid 60s and the low 60s. Those are the ones where you're hitting it in the fairway, but then you're hitting it close and you're making a lot of putts. So that's, if you can get that dialed in, if you can really dial in your irons and hit your irons to the number that you want. So if you've got 160, you need to know that you're hitting at 160. You don't hit some 170 or some 150. You hit it 160 every time, and then become a world-class putter, and you got a chance.
That's all.
Yeah.
Then become a world-class putter, and then I have a chance.
Yeah. That was the biggest thing that changed in my golf game when I went from being not bad. I was okay. I could hit it okay, but to winning tournaments was a mindset shift in putting. When I putted, like I used to putt and I was kind of scared of 3-putting, or I was afraid I was going to hit it too far by. But then I had a shift in mindset, and it was like, I'm going to putt everything to make it, and then whatever happens after that happens. So if I try to make it and it goes 4 feet by, instead of, rolling on there to tap in, then that's fine. But I'm trying to make every putt. And when you switch that mindset to like, you're focusing on the hole and you're really trying to make every putt, you putt a lot better that way.
Okay. Because that's my mindset's always like, I draw like, a 2-foot circle around the putt of the hole.
Yeah, don't do that.
And I'm like, just get it in there and then, tap it in. I'll be good.
Yeah, because if you're aiming for a 2-foot circle and you miss by 2 feet, you're 4 feet from the hole. If you aim at the hole and miss by 2 feet, you're 2 feet from the hole. So always putt to make it.
It's in the movie The Patriot, Mel Gibson says, aim small, miss small.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay. So
really, when I'm inside of 100 yards, or really inside of about 120 yards, I'm trying to make every shot. So if I'm hitting a wedge from 120 yards, I'm aiming at the hole and I'm trying to make the shot. Because I know if I miss it, my misses are going to be closer than if I'm aiming at a section of the green or a side of the green or somewhere near the hole. So once you get inside 100, 120, 140 yards, whatever you're comfortable with, you should be aiming at the hole, trying to make every shot.
Okay. So it sounds like basically too, with the irons and everything, you just got to like basically practice of like basically striking the ball the same every time, knowing how far it's going to go.
Yeah. Distance control is huge. That's one thing that a lot of amateurs don't understand is their distance. They don't really know how far their irons go. They don't know, or they hit them inconsistently. They hit some 10, 15 yards further than one swing goes a lot further than the other. And so you have to be able to dial in that distance control. But yeah, I mean, you should probably go to like a PGA professional and have them look at your swing and see what's, if your swing's good and if you got anything going on you need to fix. Because there's a lot of like inconsistency can come from a lot of different parts of the golf swing. It could be in setup, it could be in transition, it could be in your grip. And that's hard to fix if you're just practicing hitting balls. If you're just hitting it every time, you may be compensating for something that's wrong in your swing. You may need to get that checked out.
Yeah. That this is be like the last thing my wife wants to hear, because it's like as if we don't like have enough going on in life. But I'm gonna be like, oh man, yeah, no, he's right. I'm gonna go get with a pro and sit there and have them break down my swing. We're
Yeah.
gonna figure this out. And I mean, I love a challenge and anything like that
Yeah.
where it's like where I'm like, yeah, dude, like let's do this. If I have the raw talent, like I'd love for somebody to be like, all right, like let's polish you up. And because it's funny, like whenever you have a good round of golf, I've shot in the 70s a couple times. Um, so it's not like I'm killing it with the irons and putting, but like when you shoot well, I always tell people like it's so funny whenever you're playing well and you're shooting like under bogey golf, you're just like, yeah, like it's so simple. You just hit the ball into the
Yeah.
fairway and then chip it onto the green and
Yeah.
then two putt, maybe you one putt sometimes, like
Yeah.
it's a
Sometimes,
simple
yeah,
game.
some of the best rounds of golf I've had is when I get through playing and the guys I'm playing with say like, great round, man. I'm like, I really didn't feel like I did anything. I just, it was easy that day. I not hit it on a lot of greens and made some putts here and there. Like I just remember playing vividly with some of my buddies not too long ago. And I think I hit all 18 greens and shot 65, 7 under at our course, and didn't feel like I did anything special. Just was hitting a
Yeah.
lot of greens, hitting a lot of fairways, and made a few putts here and there, and birdied a couple of par fives. And I didn't really know where I was, but you kind of get into the zone when you're playing well, and if you can stay in that mental framework of seeing every shot and playing with confidence, that's how you really shoot your best scores. If you start thinking about your golf swing and thinking about like your score and all this stuff, it's kind of detrimental to your score at the end of the day.
Yeah, it starts to make you unravel.
Yeah.
So the okay, so we're gonna play golf at some point.
Okay.
And I might hit the ball really far, but then the rest of it will be terrible. So yeah, it's just I do love going to like the range though, and like
Yeah.
just absolutely bombing it. Like
Yeah.
the one range near us, um, the farthest sign is like 250. And then it's like all woods after that.
Yeah.
And so it is just fun whenever you sit there because I just go there for fun. But then like when you hit like 10 straight into like the woods beyond everything, like everybody's like starts looking at you. I'm like, I had a great slap shot, so
Yeah.
that probably has something to do with it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, that's
but
one thing about golf is to be really good at it. You have to love the process of getting better at golf. Like it's not about like there's one like when I went from being decent to being really good at golf, I didn't really think about my scores. It was more that I enjoyed getting up every day and going to the golf course and practicing and working and trying to get better. It's like that love of the process, kind of like Bitcoin. You got to stay humble and stack sats, keep your head down, and just keep accumulating. It's the same mindset where you're staying patient and you're going out every day and practicing, and you're enjoying the process more than you are like the rounds that you're posting.
yeah, you
They
don't
kind
get
of
too high or too low.
Yeah, they follow you. Like the good scores and the good tournament results kind of follow just staying patient and like loving the process of getting better.
That's a great analogy for Bitcoin because it really is like the great gains are going to come from just being patient.
Yeah.
And that's like this morning. I tweeted because I that buy order at the beginning that I wanted to place. It's just like this funny mindset. Not that I doubt placing a buy order or like risking more money or whatever. But like that's what I put a poll out and said, did on May 28th, 2022, will Bitcoin be more or less than $40,000? And like in my mind, I'm like, no doubt over 40. You know what I mean? Like there's no question. So it's like, well, then why am I concerned about placing a buy order in like the 30s? Like what? Like there's nothing to be concerned with. So I kind of did that to see what sentiment is, like what people are gonna say, and hopefully it's overwhelming, like that it's gonna be over because I want to teach people basically the lesson of like, okay, so like act accordingly. I mean, there's like 21 people voted on it so far, and it's 81% over 40K. So it's like it's like, well, if that's your thought, then act accordingly, like
Yeah.
plan accordingly, because you're not looking at it for a 1 month game. I actually wanted to say like in 2030, but you
Yeah.
know, that's harder. It's easier to get people to do the 1 year. Um, so you do, I mean, when you're an amateur, do you make money playing golf? Like, or do you can you make a living at it, or?
No. Yeah, that was so once I got kind of financially established and I started a business and I kind of do some other investment stuff, that gave me the flexibility to play, to kind of have my own schedule, and I wasn't trying to make money playing golf. And so there's a difference. Like, so high level amateur golf is probably just as good or better than like the mini tours and the low, the some of the professional golf. But the difference is when you're an amateur, you're not playing for prize money. You're playing for, basically silver platters and trophies and maybe a little gift shop credit. I think, you can win up to $750 in credit. So you can't make a living doing it, but you get to play some of the best golf courses. All of the
You
really
get to play
good,
for free, or?
No, you have to pay tournament fees, but they're not $1,000 a week. They're, you're paying 150, $200 to play in a golf tournament.
But you're playing
you're
the best
basically just
courses.
Yeah, and you're playing some unbelievable golf courses. Like the courses that I've gotten to play as an amateur, playing in amateur tournaments, were 10 times better than any course that I got to play as a professional. We get to play some like really exclusive private golf courses that are well manicured and really prestigious. Just courses that are hard to get onto. If you're wanting to just go play it as a public and you're not a member and you don't know a member, like they're almost impossible to get on these golf courses. But they'll host an amateur tournament, and if you qualify or if you get invited to these tournaments, you get to go play some really special golf courses. There was one up in Kentucky. There's a course called Idle Hour, and I never heard of it. It was just, I got an invitation to go play a tournament there after I won the state am, and kind of started digging into it. And there wasn't a whole lot about it. There wasn't a lot about the golf course publicly. And so I talked to somebody who knew about it, and they said, you need to go play in that. And so I signed up to go up there and play in it. And you pull up into the parking lot, and it's kind of a rundown parking lot with an old fence. It's just really old school. And they have this old clubhouse that's not a whole lot to look at. But then you go through the clubhouse and you pop out in the back of the golf course and you see the putting green and the driving range. And then you look out and you see it's like the most beautiful piece of land that I've ever seen on the earth. It's like perfectly manicured, fairways and greens. And that was one of the best golf courses, probably the best golf course that I've ever played. And it was just because I got invited to play in this tournament. And if I was a professional or if I was doing it for a living, I'd never get that opportunity.
Yeah, that's awesome. And like, I love it's thinking of like old school golf. Did you ever see the movie The Legend of Bagger Vance?
Yeah, it's been a while.
I love that movie because I love old school golf. I love old school things. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, it's like Fenway Park and, Wrigley and, but I love there's a great sequence whenever Will Smith is talking to Matt Damon and telling him to watch the other guy prepare to swing and like just the mental process he goes through. I love that. But yeah, I love that. So what's the best course, or what's the most famous course, I guess, that you've ever played on? Because you just answered the best course, but
the most famous course I got probably like Bethpage Black. We were driving through one year and played there.
You ever play Pebble Beach?
I have not played Pebble Beach. I haven't played out west much. Played kind of up the East Coast and played a lot in Florida. Played PGA National a couple of times. The best golf courses were either Idle Hour in Kentucky or Chenal in Little Rock, Arkansas is a really good golf course. And then the Country Club of Birmingham, the West Course, is pretty unbelievable. It's one of the toughest, most well manicured golf courses I've played. Old Waverly is pretty famous. They played the U.S. Women's Open there and played a couple of USGA events there. But yeah, I think probably the most famous, the most well known would be Bethpage Black. Played it from the back tip. Played out there. I knew it was a hard golf course. Decided I wanted to test it, and we walked out there, and I played on the very back box, to stretch it out. It was like 8,000 yards from back there, and I think I shot 38 on the front and it was going to the back, and I had one bad hole, and I think I shot 80, but I had it was like one hole. I got it in a bad spot and ended up making like a 7 or an 8, which is easy to do out there.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah.
Yeah. But
Yeah. That's what I look at. I look at Oakmont whenever I like drive by. I'm like, the church pew, like bunkers. And I'm like, oh my God, I would be like in behind that thing. Like someday I'm going to get like, you have to be, obviously be a member to go and get invited. So I'm like, one of these days, like somebody's going to invite me to play there. It's always funny when people are like, hey, you want to play at this country club? And you're like waiting. You're like, is it going to be the one? And then they're like, mention one of the other ones. Like, yeah, I'm like, okay, that's nice, but thanks for inviting me. Sure. But yeah, those church pews or something, I'll be all over the place and it'll be horrific. And it's a humbling game. It
for sure. You have a lot of expectations when you show up at a golf course, and they usually fall apart pretty quick if you're not ready for it.
Which is funny because it's like, again, it's just kind of like Bitcoin. It's a very humbling investment process. Have you found, are there a lot of other golfers that are into Bitcoin or?
Yeah, I mean, my buddies, the friends that I've eventually convinced of Bitcoin, but I would say most golfers are not in a financial position where they need Bitcoin. And so they don't see it right away. It takes a little bit, whereas somebody who grew up in, most golfers grew up pretty well off. They didn't really have financial hardships or anything. A lot of people, I mean, I'm not saying not all golfers are like that, but so most of the people that I know are still pretty skeptical about Bitcoin. Most of the people in the golf world, which I've convinced several of them that they should own a little bit anyway, but they're probably not as orange pilled as I am or have gone as deep down the rabbit hole yet.
What you need to do is get Tiger Woods to be orange pilled. I mean, if Tom Brady can be orange pilled, then Tiger Woods, because when you got that much money, you got to. I feel like he's on the other end of the spectrum where it's like, okay, like a lot of the guys are well off, but when you're Tiger Woods, like you got to be thinking like, okay, like how am I going to protect this thing? Because obviously, if they're going to print money into oblivion, then I got to do something about this.
Yeah, or we need to get Ricky Fowler with the orange jumpsuit on. He likes to wear that orange. Just put a Bitcoin logo on it and ready to go.
So if you make the U.S. Open, then are you going to wear a Bitcoin themed?
Yeah, I'm going.
Do you already have it pre-planned?
Bitcoin head to toe. Don't have anything picked out yet, but when we get in, we're going Bitcoin head to toe. I'm going to put Bitcoin logo on the golf bag. I'm gonna have my caddy wearing Bitcoin stuff too. So we'll go.
I have to talk to designer because I don't. I'll claim that I coined it. I'm sure somebody else has said this because a lot of people always say that Bitcoin is the separation of money and state. But I thought, like, what if it was the separation of person state? Because they always say church and state, so person state. So I want to make like a T-shirt and get like a design. But yeah, maybe I could sponsor you or something like that. Figure out a way to or get the Bitcoin Made Simple podcast on your bag and figure something out. So do you have a dedicated caddy or is it like whatever club you go to, they give you one?
Yeah, a lot of times if I do need a caddy, a lot of times I won't need a caddy, but sometimes if I need a caddy, I'll call the golf course and they'll have local caddies. The local caddies are pretty good. They know the golf course pretty well. But then I've got a buddy here who's going to caddy for me in this one. If we get to Jupiter, Florida, he's going to head down and caddy for me. He's a good friend of mine and he knows my game well. So he'll travel with me and caddy in some stuff. But no, usually it's just a local caddy at the golf course and they'll usually have some people available for the tournaments.
So you don't know for sure yet then if you're in Jupiter or you're
pretty sure
you will be?
Today at 5:00, they're supposed to release everything. So it's the way it works is anybody who's there's a certain allocation at each site. So Jupiter they probably have 78 people capacity and the local, like the people who are exempt, there's a lot of tour pros who aren't in the US Open, but they're exempt through local. They didn't have to go through local like I did. So they're exempt into the final qualifying. They'll get first dibs. And if they fill up Florida Jupiter, Florida before I get in, which I'm on a wait list based on when I signed up. If they fill it up, then I'll get bumped to my second choice. You have to put 3 choices in. And so I'll get bumped to, I think Atlanta is my second choice if I don't get Florida. So we'll find out today. Hopefully there's enough spots down there and I'm not too far down on the waiting list. I can get in. It's going to really screw up my plans if they move me away from the conference.
If you go to Atlanta, can you still get in the U.S. Open from there?
Yeah, it's the same. Yeah. It's just a different location. Yeah.
Okay. Do you know the course well in Florida or?
No, I've never played either one of them.
So you have to go do a couple practice rounds and.
Yeah. So my plan, if it's in Florida, is to fly in on the 3rd, the day before the conference, and then I'll play a practice round on that day, and then head down to Miami. And I'll go to the conference. I'll probably try to find somewhere down there to practice a little bit in the meantime, and sometime during the day while the conference is going on, and then drive back up Sunday, play another practice round at the Bears Club, and then the tournament starts. So the qualifying is actually on that Monday. So it'll be a week. That'll be
I'm jealous, man. That's awesome to be in that type of competition. That's gonna be so much fun. You gotta think that if you're maybe there's some goodwill out there in the universe where if you're saying like I'm gonna put Bitcoin on my bag, all that kind of stuff, then maybe this is the thing that because Bitcoin is inevitable.
Yeah.
So maybe this is the thing, the stars are aligning and it's going to propel you, and it's going to be like, the universe is going to be like, let's give him all the help he can get, and let's get him the U.S. Open championship. Let's win the whole thing.
Bitcoin Twitter has given me a lot of confidence and support. They're saying I'm for sure in. So if you put up some betting lines, they'd probably get some action on Bitcoin Twitter.
Well, you could, if you. Let's just hypothetically, extrapolate this out. Say you get in, to the U.S. Open, you got Bitcoin all over. You're going to get a ton of attention just for that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it's gonna, and so you'll probably have like 100,000 Bitcoin followers by the end of the weekend. Because the cyber hornets will just be all over it.
Yeah.
And then let's just say you win the whole thing, and just are on fire, win the tournament. Then all of a sudden Bitcoin shoots up to 200,000 that day. Maybe it's meant to be. It could all be tied in. Part of my theory of my 1% theory that Satoshi's from the future and laid this all in, so that it went through it back to the past, so that it would effectively work as best as possible. And 2021, this would be the have an amateur with Bitcoin all over his bag win the U.S. Open. I think sounds pretty storybook to me.
Yeah, and all my balls have they're all number 21. I order them special at the beginning of each year to like get through the season, and all of them they're Pro V1s. They're number 21 instead of having like 1, 2, 3, or 4. They're all number 21, yeah. And then on the side there's like a special thing that says HODL on the side. So you have the Pro V1 logo on one side and then HODL on the other side.
Nice. You'll be able to get some easy sponsorships too, because Jack Mallers is doing the Indy 500 Bitcoin car this weekend.
But I can't be dressed like that Indy 500 Bitcoin car looks. I don't think that would work.
Yeah, that'd be a little hot,
a little loud.
Yeah, you gotta tone it down a little bit. So what do you do then? For the life of an amateur golfer, like, what's the business you have that you do?
Yeah, so I've got some rental property, and I own a like a little self-storage, like a mini storage unit complex, and then I've got a construction company that kind of focuses on like outdoor decks, patios, pergolas, and fences. Mm-hmm. So I do that. I've got a crew that kind of runs that, and then the other investment stuff. Back before I kind of got into this stuff, I was working for a construction company, and kind of go back to what sent me, like some of the stuff that sent me down the Bitcoin rabbit hole is I started thinking about myself as a business, and and like if you're a business and you're an individual and you have a job, then you have one customer and you have one product. Your one customer is your employee, and what your product is your time. And so I wanted to, you started
Did
thinking
you
about
just
that.
tweet that recently?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was gonna say, it was like, I remember reading that and I was like, man, that is perfect.
Yeah. You have to diversify. You need to get more products. You need to have a bigger product line. So you need to be selling something other than your time, and you need to have more than one customer. So whether your customers are multiple employers, or whether it's actual customers for a business you own, because you have to escape that rat race. That rat race is like when you're just constantly selling your time for business, you can't get your time for money and the dollar. You can't. It's hard to get ahead. And so that was along the lines of the time I was getting Bitcoin, and Bitcoin gave me some financial freedom to do that stuff, where I was able to escape having one employer and selling one product to having, I kind of wanted to diversify and have multiple streams of income.
Yeah.
And, it's changed the way I view like jobs and employment for sure.
Yeah. Well, that's such good insight for anyone that, if you're listening to this and haven't like taken you're still, stuck in one job or whatever. That's the way to look at it. Cause, I think about, my wife always tells me I come up with stories about people. I mean, I'm a filmmaker, so that's part of what I do.
Yeah.
But like I could see somebody on the road and I don't necessarily think badly. I'm not judging them, but I come up with a story in my head of like what that person, if they could be in another car, they could be crossing the street, whatever, like what do they do? But there's this one guy in like a rental property near us where like I see him walking. He walks every day to work at like, I think he's like a mechanic or something at one of the local, like Jiffy Lube or something like that. And he lives in this like rental property, and it's like, like, are you free or are you in prison? You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
Like you get up every day, you go work at this job, and I mean, you have to earn a living and do something. You can't just sit around and do nothing. But
Yeah.
you go, you earn your living, you go back, you watch Jeopardy on TV, drink a couple beers, go to bed, wake up, do it again. And it's like, you got to figure it out. Like, are you happy with that?
Yeah.
Is that a prison? Are you enslaved?
Yeah.
It might have been you on Twitter that posted. I saw somebody post that said, like, it was a quote. It was an old quote saying how you're like, nothing is more enslaving than like the person who thinks they're free or something like that.
Yeah. I didn't tweet that, but I like it.
Yeah. So you ended up getting multiple different streams.
Yeah, I would say like that's probably the number one step that I would suggest for anybody who's trying to want to do that is you don't have to quit your job, but like start a side hustle, do something to like generate some other income. Because if you have an employer, your employer is your only customer, they could move on, they could find somebody else, they could fire you at any time, and then you're an insolvent business. So you want to diversify to give yourself optionality, and then that also gives you freedom to say no. Like if you're sick of your job and you've started a couple of side hustles, you're doing other stuff, it gives you the optionality to where, hey, my time's not worth coming here every day 40 hours a week. I want to go play in some golf tournaments, or I want to do this, or I want to do that. It gives you freedom and flexibility to kind of do what you want.
Yeah. I mean, I would even say like, because with like this podcast, like I've said multiple times to people, I'm not doing this with the hopes of making money. I'm doing it with the hopes of learning as much as I can. And I figured, talking to other Bitcoiners and like getting people's perspectives was the best way to do it. And,
Yeah.
But I mean, if I wasn't an entrepreneur or out on my own doing multiple things, like I would never have the free, I mean, you imagine having like a 9-to-5 job and being like, oh yeah, I can spend like 4 or 5 hours a week on a podcast. Like, no, it's insane. So then with being an amateur golfer, like how much are you golfing? How many days a week are you on the course?
Right now, I would say when I was trying to play professional golf, it was, that's the one thing they do is you get up and you work, and it's just a job. So you're playing every day, you're practicing every day. For me, it's, with the U.S. Open qualifying coming up, and we're kind of getting into tournament season, I'm playing 3 days a week and then practicing another 2 or 3. So I usually have a day or two off when I'm not kind of trying to work on my game. But that's not year round for me. That's kind of leading up to tournament season, and then once we get through the summer and then into the fall, I'll kind of ease back a little bit and into the winter. Now, if you're playing professional golf, you got to keep your 8 hours a day. It's basically a full-time job. You're working at it. That's one of the big differences. So I would say I play like probably 2 or 3 rounds of golf a week and then practice on a couple more days.
So that's it's definitely racks up an expense though. That's for sure.
Yeah, you definitely have to have a membership somewhere. So I actually have an out of town membership to a golf course that's 55 minutes away that I play at. And so I get the out of town deal. So it's a little bit cheaper. And then I walk every time I play. So, I'm not paying for carts, and I'm just paying the flat monthly dues that I'm paying. So I try to keep my expenses as low as I can so I can stack more sats.
Yeah. No, definitely. I mean, if you join in a country club and, oh my God, I don't even know how much it would cost to join like Oakmont or something like that.
Yeah.
Like any of the country clubs that host.
Even if you could, your initiation fee would be $50,000 at minimum.
Yeah. Well, I remember my dad talking about, describing how somebody he worked with or something belonged to a country club. And I remember thinking this was the saddest thing ever. But they, we were talking about how like they have the minimum meals that you have to consume, or you pay for them. So it's whether or not you eat them. Yeah. Which is like, fine, I get it. But
they have to support their restaurant. So
but I remember it was like a husband and wife, and they had one kid, and they went to Thanksgiving dinner at the country club, and I was like, really, like have like their family to go to, like it's interesting.
The country, I used to be a member at a local country club here that was closer by, but there was like, you had a food minimum. It wasn't much. It was like 30 or $40 a month you had to spend.
Oh, that's not bad.
On food. So, I mean, if you went up there for a lunch a couple of days a week, you would eat it up.
Yeah. Walking the course has got to be a great way to stay in shape though, too. Like it kind of knocks out like your need to really do much exercising beyond. If you're walking 18 holes 3 times a week, that's
and carrying a bag. Yeah. So I try to hit the gym each morning and then go out there and walk. But I'm trying to walk as much as I can leading up to this because I've got to walk 36 holes in Jupiter, Florida. And I don't know how that's going to be as far as like temperature goes. I don't think it's quite as humid as it is here, but it's going to be in the 90s, I'm sure.
Oh yeah. Is your buddy practicing carrying a bag for 36 holes?
Well, the thing about him is he's going to get to ride in a golf cart.
He does get to ride in the golf cart.
Not all caddies do, but he has a special exemption from the USGA. So when he was 8 years old, he got a blood disease and it almost killed him. And they ended up amputating his legs from his, like just below his knees.
Okay.
But so he has prosthetics from his knees down, but he has an exemption from the USGA to use a cart while he caddies, which is cool. But he's a great golfer. He's like probably a 4 or 5 handicap. He shoots in the mid 70s and has prosthetics from his knees down.
Wow, that's crazy. Who was the golfer that had to use he used a cart and it caused all kinds of controversy in like the 90s?
John Daly's tried it. I can't remember if he used one or not, but he did try to request an exemption for one. Oh, it was he had a back problem. I can't think of his name, but it's exactly who it was though. He had a back problem. I remember when that happened. But John Daly
is he's not a Pittsburgher, but he fits in with a Pittsburgh crowd. And John
Daly's local down here, so he grew up right across the Mississippi River in Arkansas.
Oh, okay, yeah. So
he owns a golf course in Nashville that we played at. Last time I was there, he was there. He was out just hanging out. He was as cool as he could be, just.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I think it was right after he found out that he had cancer. He was there, but he was just hanging out and talking to everybody, just laid back. But yeah, there's a lot of local legend stories about John Daly around here.
Okay, talk about somebody that can bomb it.
Yeah.
The So where do you think we land with Bitcoin here? We're let's see if where we're at right now. I mean, I won't be releasing this until later. I'll probably release this close to the U.S. Open, which is what,
Okay.
2 weeks, 2.5 weeks.
Yeah.
Just to kind of be on theme.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're
So, man, I don't know. I'm like I said, I'm too bullish. I know there's infinite amount of dollars, and I know there's only 21 million Bitcoin. So, but
it goes
I
up
try to
forever,
always,
right?
yeah, I try to always think about just long term. I always try to think as long term as can. So when my friends ask me what Bitcoin's doing, I'm always saying, don't worry about it right now. Think about it 5 years down the road. Where do you think it's going to be 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road? But so if I need to make a prediction for the qualifier, or I guess we can say the conference, I think we get a conference pump. So, I mean, maybe we'll be back at the 48,000 by the time we're at the conference.
Yeah. And then you think we touch what, 100 this year?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I don't see the tailwind slowing down. I mean, the money printer's still pumping, and there's still a lot of people learning about Bitcoin. I think a lot of the people who came in with the Dogecoin pumps and all that stuff, they'll eventually be Bitcoiners. As much as you hate to see them come in and buying Doge and Doge to the moon, eventually those people kind of figure it out. They come in for like the speculation nature, and then some of them will be drawn to like the monetary policy and the economics of Bitcoin. So a lot of those people may end up flowing back into Bitcoin, and maybe we get a big run up and hit 6-figure Bitcoin by the end of the year.
I gotta ask you, how many hole-in-ones do you have?
One.
Yeah. Man, so that means my chances of getting one are like zero.
Well, I play with a lot of golfers. I play with one guy who I can beat by 10, 15 shots every time we play, and he's got 13 hole-in-ones. So
really?
yeah, so it's it's kind of lucky. It's one of those things where you got to just be lucky, really. I've had several land right behind the hole, spin back, lip out. I've hit the flag stick 4 or 5 times, and I've just had one go in. One of them landed right behind the hole on a short par three and spun back and disappeared, and that was the only one. I've torn the hole up on par threes. I've hit the side of the cup and like ripped the side of the cup out with the ball,
Really?
and then it popped out and didn't go in. So
Oh man.
yeah, it's kind of, you got to hit it just right. They're just extremely rare.
And what's the technical rule? Like, because I mean, I know it can bounce out, so like it has to hit the bottom of the cup and stay in, or like what do
Yeah.
they say in the rule book? Like,
Yeah,
how's it defined?
yeah, it's wherever your ball comes to rest. So if you fly it into the hole and it hits the flag stick, bounces out, you play the shot wherever it ends up. Yeah, I was playing in a tournament 2 years ago, and laid up on a par five and hit a wedge into like a back left pin, and there was a hazard just left and short of the hole, and I flew it and it hit the flag stick like 2 or 3 feet up on the stick where it was going to be a pretty close shot. Hits the flag stick and ricochets into the water, and so I have to end up taking a drop, and ended up making par. I think it was a par five, so I hit three in the water. I took a drop and made the putt for a par, but it was those unfortunate breaks where you get bad bounces, and if it hits the side of the hole and comes out, you have to play it where it ends up.
I remember this tournament watching. I mean, because I fell in love with golf probably when I was like 11 or 12. And then like in the summertime, it's just like I love sitting there watching any tournament, and
Yeah.
just like on like a nice day, like it was like back like when you're 12, 13, you start getting like a little bit of independence, you're home by yourself like during the day and whatnot. And like I used to love, this is really take me back, make me want to do it today. But like if there was a tournament on, you just had the tournament going. I'd get like plastic golf balls in the backyard and just go like hit them around, come in, watch a little bit of the tournament, eat some lunch, like go back out. Those are the days. But I remember this one guy, he hit. Well, there's two funny stories. So one was unfortunate for the guy. It was a hole in one where he holed right into the cup and it bounced out like, but it hit so hard, it looked like it hit a parking lot, and it
Yeah.
like bounced up and it went in the water. So it was a from a hole in one into the water. But I'll never forget this other one, um, where like the drive went off towards like the walkway. It was going out of bounds, and they have the overhead shot, and it kind of like messes with your depth perception and like the way the ball, like where the ball's actually going. And I remember seeing this one guy. It wasn't a huge tournament, so there's not, there's just like stray people like walking along there. And
Yeah.
this guy was just walking, and I'm like trying to judge. I'm like, oh my god, I think this guy's gonna get hit by the ball. Um, and he has no idea. He's not looking where the ball's coming. But sure enough, it landed, and like it was probably like a foot and a half in front of him. It landed and bounced up and hit him right in the balls, like just crushed him. And it was just like I remember seeing that on like live TV on like ESPN or something, being
Yeah.
like, like
Yeah.
that was amazing. It was just like one of those things where you're like, I can't believe that just happened, and like nobody's gonna believe it. And, like
Yeah.
maybe I saw like a replay of it one time, and that was it. Like, but I didn't have a smartphone to record it or anything, like that.
Yeah, there was a Rory McIlroy hit a drive right one time, and it went through some trees and ended up in a guy's pocket. It went into the guy's pocket, and they had to go in there, get a rules official, and figure out where to drop it to take it out of the guy's pocket. That was pretty funny.
So what if the guy walked with it in his pocket and then laid down next to the hole and had it roll out of his pocket and into the
I
hole?
don't
What
know.
happens then?
Yeah, I'd have to get a rules official for that one. I don't know the answer to that. What the guy ended up doing is I think he just stood there still until Rory got there, and then he took the ball out of his pocket, and Rory dropped it where the guy's like just underneath his pocket where his foot was. So the guy had to move out of the way, and then he took a drop. But yeah,
That's wild. That's wild. What's the craziest thing you've ever had to hit off of?
hit off of.
I mean, I've seen people hitting them off grandstands. Was that Dustin Johnson a couple years ago?
Yeah, Phil Mickelson's done that plenty of times. Well, the craziest shot I've ever hit was actually out of the clubhouse one day we were just had a bet that we could hit a shot out of the clubhouse doors. It's Tin Cup style, or no, Happy Gilmore. No, it was Tin Cup where he hit it out of the doors. I mean, I've hit it off the cart path plenty of times. I've had my ball settle down like in a tree, not like too high up, and I've chipped it out of a tree before.
That's better than taking the penalty.
Yeah, if you can just advance it back to the fairway, if you can just get it out of there, then if you take the penalty, you're losing a shot and you're still having a drop right there. So if you can just, it's risky because you could miss the ball, or you could, it could bounce a weird way. But yeah, that's probably the weirdest thing I've ever done. Is I had to climb up. It wasn't high off the ground, but it was high. It was like I was having to hit it like a baseball shot, just chip it out of this bush, but it was up in the air.
Are you allowed to do the Happy Gilmore? Because being a hockey player, I did the Happy Gilmore for like the first year and a half that I played golf. And then I got yelled at once I got to like a good course, like on the first tee. Like I got so casual with it that like that's just how I did. Lined up and ran up, and I was getting ready to do that, and the course official or whatever they're called, the ranger, he was like, whoa, 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 and I was like, looked over, and he was like, we don't do that. And I was like, but I was like, trust me, I'll hit it like normal, and he was like, no. And then I literally, like, after that, I was like, all right, I'm not gonna go through that again because it was kind of embarrassing.
No, there's nothing in the rule book that says you can't do it. Yeah, you can do that. You can run up and hit it if you want to. Yeah.
Oh, you should do that at the U.S. Open.
I saw it happen it wasn't too long ago. Somebody did it in a tournament. Went up, and I was on the first tee, and in a PGA event, and they were kind of either way back or they had made the cut, but they had played bad on Saturday, and I can't remember who did it, but the announcer was talking, and it looked like he was lining up a shot, and he just stepped right into it and ripped it down the fairway.
It's probably the best shot he hit all week.
Oh, everybody, the fans loved it. They got a huge kick out of stuff like that. People doing stuff weird.
How many people will be at the qualifier? Like, is there a decent crowd for that?
Yeah, probably. I'm not sure exactly. Last time we had one of these, we used to have one in Memphis that was pretty close by, and I used to go out there and watch. And it usually there's a few people on each hole kind of watching, or people will follow certain groups. And it depends on who you get paired with too, depending, how many people will be following you. Because in these qualifiers, you could get paired with like pretty big name tour pros, like people who have played on tour in the past and been successful, or people who are just kind of coming up who aren't quite qualified for the US Open yet. They'll all be playing in these qualifiers. And it being at the Bears Club, the Bears Club is where like Rory McIlroy plays, and there's like a few other, Keegan Bradley, I think's down there. There's a few pretty big name tour pros who live there, and that's where they practice and play. So if they're not playing in Ohio, where the PGA Tour event, they'll probably be at this qualifier at the Bears Club in Jupiter.
Just, watching, or
no, they'll be there. They'll be playing in it. Well, not
they'll
those,
just play just to play.
But some of those tour pros who are down there, they'll be playing in it to qualify for the U.S. Open. I could be paired with them. Yeah.
Who's the best golfer you ever played with?
The best golfer I've ever
biggest
played
name with?
Or I don't know. Really the best golfers that I've played with have been just really good amateurs. Like, so there's two guys who are from Tennessee, Danny Green and Tim Jackson. And they're basically, if you look them up and look up their history, they're some of the best amateur golfers to ever play amateur golf. Like, if their record, they won, Danny won the U.S. Mid-Am. He finished runner-up in the U.S. Am. He played in the Masters twice. He played in 60 something USGA events, like won every major amateur golf tournament in the country. Tim Jackson did the same thing. He played the Masters twice, played on a couple of Walker Cup teams. But those guys, they're a little older now. Both of them are like in their late 50s, early 60s. But like, just playing with those, I play with them a lot in amateur tournaments, and they're like, just seeing how they play the game, how they approach the game, and knowing like what they've done. They've traveled across really across the whole world playing competitive golf as an amateur, and those guys are unbelievable. But the people, like some of these young college players, are pretty dang impressive playing with those guys, how far they hit it. They're really good. Some of those have a lot of potential, but yeah, I can't think of any, like, just the best player I've ever played with. I don't played with quite a few tour pros. I played with a guy who won the big break, Jimmy Brandt. We got paired together in a tournament. He ended up winning the big break a couple of years later. He was good, but yeah, I haven't played with any really big name stars or anything.
Well, if you get paired with Rory, I think that would be.
Yeah, Rory will be. He'll be through local, or he'll be through finals. So if I get paired with him, it'd have to be during the U.S. Open and have to be like on Saturday. So I'd have to make the cut and then play good enough to be paired with him.
Well, but if you make the cut, then you can stack a lot of sats, right?
Well, I won't be able to collect any money as an amateur unless I turn.
Wait, pro. So if you're an amateur, no matter how well you do,
yeah, $750 worth of gift shop credit. So if I won the U.S. Open, whatever the prize money is, $2 million, I would be able to collect $750 worth of gift shop credit.
Would you turn pro to take the $2 million?
I don't know. That's a good question. I'll have to think about that after I get through this final qualifying.
Because I mean,
I don't know when I'd have to declare though.
So you'd have to declare, and then otherwise you get $750 worth of gold.
Yeah, I would have to declare pro before the tournament, I think.
Has any amateur won a major?
Yeah. So back in early 1900s, like, amateur golfers were kind of different. It was a different mindset. Like, the pros were just like the working club professionals, the people who worked and taught in golf. And then the amateurs were like, now I don't know, it was different. Amateurs were a lot more competitive. They were almost better than the pros. And so there's been 5 or 6 amateurs win the US Open, but this was the last one to do it was a long time ago. Phil Mickelson, when he first came out, his first win on the PGA Tour, he was an amateur.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So there has been some to do it, but it's been a long time since anybody's, competed at that level in a major championship.
Can you qualify for other PGA events as an amateur?
Oh yeah. You can go do any Monday qualifying for like a PGA Tour event, and then to get in. So at the U.S. Open, I think the low amateur gets an invite to the Masters. So if I was to qualify for the U.S. Open and then make it through and finish low amateur, I would get an invitation to play in the Masters next year. And then there's other ways to qualify for different tournaments. So you can pretty much qualify. I think the PGA Championship is all PGA professionals. There's no amateurs that play in that, but most other tournaments, there's an avenue for an amateur to play in it.
Have you ever played in a PGA tournament?
No. I've tried to qualify for when they used to have the FedEx St. Jude in Memphis. I tried to qualify for it once or twice, and then I've tried to qualify for the U.S. Open a couple times, but now they've changed that one. Now that's a World Golf Championship in Memphis, so they don't have qualifying for it. And then, the biggest tournaments that I've played in as far as professional golf were like just the mini tour events and Hooters Tour. Some of those like decent golf. I mean, there was good golfers that played in those, but it wasn't PGA Tour level.
I gotta do a tournament just to I gotta find one just to be like, I was in a tournament,
Yeah. And there's probably plenty of local tournaments around where you are. You just go sign up as an amateur. They'll probably ask for you for a handicap. So you may have to establish a handicap.
How do you do that?
You just enter scores. So you go play and then keep track of your score. And then there's the USGA does the handicapping system. And so you just log in, you create an account, and then you post all your scores into a handicap system, and it spits out like if you're scratch, you're a 0, if you're a bogey golfer, you're an 18 handicap. And then you just, there's limits on handicap for dinner tournament. So to sign up for the US Open, I think you have to be like a minimum, you have to be a 2. So you can't be above a 2. But anybody can sign up to play in it.
Huh. That's pretty wild. And then you have to wear the long pants. You can't wear shorts.
Well, I get to wear shorts all the way up until the U.S. Open. So if I make it to the U.S. Open, then I'll have to wear shorts. But for the qualifying, I can wear shorts.
Okay, because I mean, man, that's the only downside to.
Yeah.
I've always thought is man, how do they wear the long pants? That would be brutal. Because even wearing nice shorts, I'm sweating to death compared to what I would.
Yeah, I want to make that one of my life goals is that I could wear shorts every day. That was if I knew I could wear shorts every day, and that would mean I was living somewhere warm and I didn't have a job that required me to wear pants.
Yeah, no, I think from beginning of junior year until my end of my senior year of high school, I didn't wear long pants. Other than a formal dance or wedding or something like that. But I refused. I didn't like the way that the pants wrinkled up around my feet and ankles. It was uncomfortable to me. So yeah, in the wintertime it'd be snow outside and I'd be walking into school with shorts on because and also too I still do that pretty frequently. My wife's like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like, "Well, if I'll be freezing for 30 seconds in the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then I'm going to be sweating to death inside Target. I'm going to die in there because it's so hot.
Yeah.
So I'm not wearing, I always thought I want to have air conditioned pants. That'd be my one invention.
Yeah.
If I ever invent something, it'll be air conditioned pants.
Yeah, there you
go. Well, yeah, I gotta figure out how to be something because I don't even know how to put spin on the ball. That's the thing. I have no idea. I can when I'm chipping, it's just trying to place it in a certain area on the ball. Somebody asked me how do you put backspin on? I was like, I have no idea. I've done it accidentally before.
The way I think about chipping and putting spin on it is if you ever played ping pong, you know how you put backspin on it or you put topspin on it. So you're doing the same thing. You're doing it with a golf club and the ball's sitting on the ground. And so to put spin on it, you have to cut underneath it, but you have to hit it with a downward blow. So you can't try to scoop up on it. You have to hit it in a downward strike, and that puts the backspin on it. But you're trying to swipe the face down the backside of the ball.
So then you're not going to have a huge follow through on a backspin when you're getting backspin, right?
Yeah, you're gonna have a downward blow, but then you're gonna follow through the same
but
way.
it'll just be a little different. You're not trying to scoop it off the ground. You're
Well,
really
I don't try to.
digging into
Yeah,
the
I don't
dirt.
try to scoop anything off the ground. So all of my shots, you're going to come in with a descending blow and strike the back of the ball, and then follow through. But you never try to chip up on it. If you're chipping, you're always going to be hitting it with a downward blow.
Okay,
Or
so you're always
a pretty level blow.
So you're always getting the divot, and
Yeah, they're not. You shouldn't have too much of a divot when you chip. You should sweep the top of the grass. You're catching the ball, but you're sweeping the grass.
okay, so you're not digging into the dirt.
No, not digging.
You're not sitting there like
no,
boom,
Yeah, no.
Like a sand trap. In a sand trap, I'm lost. I don't even know.
Sand traps just open the club face wide open. Not wide open, but open the club face. Open your stance, and then you just want to try to like slap the back of the club onto the sand and go through the sand. A few inches behind the ball. You want the sand to actually lift the golf ball out of the hole.
So you don't actually hit the ball.
No, you don't actually hit the ball. You're trying to like swipe the club under the ball with a wide open face, hitting the back of the sand, or hitting the back of the club to the sand and letting the club go under the ball, and then the sand lifts the ball out of the bunker.
Wow. Wild.
Yeah.
All right. Well, hey, Aaron, I really appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
And sorry that we had to reschedule with the air conditioner issue, but I didn't.
No worries.
I didn't want to have the YouTube audience have to watch me like sweat to death and and all that. So, but yeah, where can people find you? Let them know where they can find you to Bitcoin, but also I'm sure your golf gets updated there.
Yeah, so just jump on Twitter. My Twitter handle is BTC Aaron. That's BTCAARON. And that's pretty much it. I post updates about what's going on with golf tournaments a lot, and then I mostly just post about random thoughts I have about about Bitcoin. So if you want to hear my thoughts about Bitcoin and keep updated on my golf stuff, then just hit me up on Twitter. DMs are open if you ever want to have a conversation too.
Yeah, and I'll have to one of these times. I'm heading out here for a little bit, but whenever I get back and get settled, I want to try the Twitter Spaces. So if I ever do a Twitter Spaces or something, I'll like invite you in, like just see, just start talking about Bitcoin, see what people say.
All right, sounds good.
All right, man. Well, good luck well, hopefully, hearing that you're gonna be in Jupiter, and and good luck. If you're in the U.S. Open, then we want to see that Bitcoin everywhere.
All right. All right. Sounds good. Yeah. Thanks for having me. I always enjoy just getting on and chatting about Bitcoin. I can do it all day, and golf, Bitcoin and golf. So.
Yeah. These are two things that I could talk about for probably like 8 hours, and two things that my wife does not want to talk about for 8 hours.
That sounds about right.
Yeah. So it kills two birds with one stone, because now whenever we're driving down to the beach today, so whenever we get in the car, she won't be having to listen to me talk about Bitcoin and golf too much.
All right.
So, all right, man. Well, thanks for coming on. We'll have you on at some point again.
All right. Sounds good.